2.5 is on transformations of functions. So we're going to work some problems from the Chapter 2 review found on page 325. I plan on looking at maybe 4 of them if we have time. So first, let's look at number 54. The instructions say, begin by graphing the standard quadratic function f of x equals x squared. Then use transformations of this graph to graph the given function. So 54, the given function is g of x equals x squared plus 2. Okay, so first of all, I got to start by graphing the standard function, which is f of x equals x squared. So let me off over here to the side, f of x equals x squared. This is a standard graph. It's my quadratic. Oops, made that mistake right there. Should we clean that up? Of course we should. Let me clean that. Let's try again. That's a little better. So this is my graph, f of x equals x squared. It's just a sketch. Now I'm going to graph g of x using f of x. So let's see what we can remember. What does it mean when I'm adding 2 to x squared? What's changing here? So this plus 2. If I was to, instead of writing an x squared, I'm going to write f of x. So that's what they're equal to, right? So g of x is equal to really f of x plus 2. So what does that plus 2 really mean? It means I'm adding 2 to the original or standard function, which is the standard function. That's like saying a change in y. Remember, f of x is the same as saying y. So I'm adding 2 to y, which means I am literally moving my graph up 2. So let's see. I'm going to do it in blue right here. And again, this is just a sketch. It's just a sketch. So I did have, I'll use different colors. I did have the standard graph, and it looked like the following. I'll make it a little wider. That's fine. Something's going on with me in these graphs today. Let's try it one more time. So here's the standard, f of x equals x squared. Now, when I graph my g of x, I'm shifting it up 2. I'm going up 2. So let's pretend like this is a tick mark. There's the second one. Let's change this color. Okay, roughly that's what it looks like. Technically, they probably should overlap, but that's okay. It's just a sketch. So what's the difference between g of x and f of x? Well, the difference is I'm adding 2 to the function, which means I'm going up 2. So this is a shift up 2 units. Okay. Let's work on another one. Let's look at number 55. 55 says h of x equals x plus 2 squared. Okay, so I'm going to use f of x to help graph h of x just by using transformations. So this one's different from 54 because in 54 I was just adding 2 to the original function. Whereas in 55 I'm adding 2 to what? What am I adding 2 to? I'm actually adding it to the x. And the rule is you always do the opposite. So even though it's telling me I'm adding 2, I really would shift 2 units to the left. You're going to go 2 units to the left. So let's get my standard graph up here one more time. And again, this is just a sketch. It's a rough looking picture. Okay, so there's my sketch. This is f of x equals x squared. And let's change colors. Let's go to blue. All right, so now I'm going to graph h of x, but all I got to do is shift my f of x 2 units to the left because I'm adding 2 to x, which means I'm really going to move it 2 units to the left. So let me put some tick marks in here. 1, 2. So if I pretend like that's, accurate and all this and that, that's 2 tick marks. And this is h of x. And all I did was shift it 2 units to the left. Good, making sense so far? Awesome. Let's try another one. Let's change my color. This is number 58. And let me read the instructions. Begin by graphing the square root function f of x equals the square root of x. Then use the transformation of this graph to graph the given function. So 58's given function is g of x equals the square root of x plus 3. All right, so first they tell me to start by graphing the standard function. So the standard function, f of x equals the square root of x. Well, how does it look? It looks like the following. And again, these are just sketches. Oops, don't like that. That's a lie. 1 second. Okay. Let's try that again. Almost right. But basically, that's kind of what it looks like. So let's see here. We're going to use f of x to help graph g of x. So what's different between f of x and between g of x? Well, it's the 3. And what's the 3 being added to? It's being added to x, which means I'm really going to do a shift 3 units in which direction? That's right, to the left. Since it's on x, I'm actually going to do the opposite. It's adding 3, so I'm really going to shift it 3 units to the left. So here is my standard function. Let's see if I'll put it down here. And maybe we can fit one more in. So here's my standard function. And what I'm going to do is shift it 3 units to the left. So I'm going to put 3 tick marks. Change my color. Oh, it won't let me change my color. Let's see if it'll let me do it this way. Okay. So 3 units to the left. And roughly that's how it looks. Roughly. You should verify with your calculator. Okay. So let's see what we went over so far. If I have a change on the function, then it's a change in y. So either I go up or down. Y, this is the y-axis, also known as the f of x axis. And it goes up and down, up and down. If it's a change on x, then I'm going left or right. And it's always the opposite. If it's adding, if the change is if the change on x is by adding, then you're going to shift it to the left. If the change on x is by subtracting, then you're going to go to the right. And let's see if we can fit in one more example. Let's see, which one should we pick? Let's look at number 61. So I'm going to put it down here. I know it's getting a little cluttered, but let's just deal with it. So 61 equals g of x equals the absolute value of x plus 2 minus 3. Instructions say, begin by graphing the absolute value function. F of x equals the absolute value of x. Then use the transformation of this graph to graph the given function. Well, I'm going to put it down here. This is how the absolute value of x looks like. And again, this is a sketch. That's the absolute value of x. So this is my f of x. Okay? Now I need to use f of x to graph g of x. But what do we notice here? We notice a lot of different things, don't we? Let's use red. First of all, I'm adding 2. So wait, let me put absolute value of x right here. Okay, what's different? I'm adding 2 to x, and what's this? I'm subtracting 3. So let's first start with the addition, adding 2. So if I'm adding 2 on x, this really tells me to do what? Shift the graph, or shift the graph, I'll put the graph, 2 units to the left. Shift the graph 2 units to the left. What about subtracting 3? Remember, subtracting 3 off of the absolute value means I'm changing the entire function. I'm changing f of x, which means I have a change in y. So it says subtract 3. So this tells me to shift 3 units down. So shift 3 units down. So let's see here. I'm going to try to put it on this graph. I'm going to clean this graph up and let's see if I can put it on this one. Give me a second while I get myself organized with color and pen and all that good stuff. Okay, so here's the standard function, the absolute value of x. And let's see here. We're going to need to go 2 units to the left, so I'm going to put in 2 tick marks to the left. And we need to go 3 units down, put in 3 tick marks down. If I'm adding 2 to x, that means go 2 units to the left. If I'm subtracting 3 off of the entire absolute value part, I'm subtracting 3, not inside the absolute value, but on the outside of it, then I'm actually going 3 units down. And let's change my color here. We're going to do this in steps. Let's do the 2 units to the left first. So adding 2 to x gives me this. I shift 2 units to the left. Oops. Okay, 2 units to the left. And I end up with this. This blue graph represents the absolute value of x plus 2. Now let's put in the minus 3. Minus 3 tells me to go down 3. So let's change the color again. Let's go to red. Alright, so we are here. We shifted 2 units to the left. Now we're going to go 3 units down. 1, 2, 3. And again, it's a sketch, so just go along with it. So this one is x plus 2 minus 3. And that's how the graph looks, using transformations. What can we take away from this? If it's a change in y, you just follow whatever the sign says. So the sign says minus 3, so I'm going down. If it's a change in x, you do the opposite of whatever that sign says. If it says plus, you really go to the left.